everyone! I figure this is a long overdue birth story video since Bear is 7 months old today. So, sorry about being so delayed. You know, life. Okay, I guess I'll start with the due date. Bear was due on Christmas Eve, which is a super sucky due date. I really didn't think about that one when we started trying to conceive. And we got pregnant on cycle 1, so whoops. Anyway, he was due Christmas Eve, so I was severely hoping he'd either come before his due date or after and not on, because a birthday on Christmas Eve or on Christmas would really suck. Having a birthday close to Christmas sucks anyway. Sorry, kid. So, anyway, I was due on Christmas Eve, and on Christmas Eve day I started having some contractions, but they were really sporadic, about like 20 to 30 minutes apart, and they'd come but then they'd disappear for a while, and then a couple hours later they'd come back. So I wasn't too worried about them. On Christmas morning I woke up and I had Hubs take a picture of me in front of the Christmas tree. I was enormous. I don't even know how I survived that long. I was huge. The doctor said that I wasn't going to even make it to my due date because from like 32 weeks on, I was really big. And they were telling me that Bear was going to be like this monster 10-pound baby, just based on my size. And I was nervous, but I was fully expecting him to kind of come early, and then he didn't. So they told me that if he didn't come by Christmas, they were going to induce me the 26th. Okay, there's several reasons that they wanted to induce me. The first was around 27 weeks of pregnancy, my right hip completely dislocated. So they popped it back in, but at 29 weeks of pregnancy, it completely dislocated again. And so they said, we can keep popping it in and out, but that's going to be more pain than it's worth. So just bed rest yourself, you know, limited bed rest, and try and take care of it. I was like, okay, that sucks, but, you know, whatever's needed for the health of my baby. So my right hip was dislocated from 29 weeks on. At around 34 weeks, my left hip gave out, and so I was like this humongous no-hip creature, which sucked. So they said, we're going to induce you because we don't want you going too long with the hips like that and him getting too big. Also, around 38 weeks of pregnancy, my blood pressure started to gradually go up, and so did the protein in my urine. It wasn't anything to make them say we need an emergency induction right now, but it was enough for them to say we don't want you going too long with this. So I agreed to an induction on the 26th, which is the day after Christmas. Whatever. So I was supposed to arrive at the hospital at 5, but at around 10:30ish on the morning of the 26th, I had this crazy huge contraction that almost knocked me off my feet. It was bad. It was worse than any I had been feeling, and I had been feeling some since like 35 weeks on, just random sporadic. But this one was huge. And so about 15 minutes later, another one hit, and then another one 15 minutes after that. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm going into labor on my own. Maybe I can just call them and tell them I don't need the induction. So about 15 minutes apart for like 3.5 hours, and then at around 2:30 they picked up, and they started coming about every 10 minutes apart, every 8 minutes apart. And so I said, let's just go in a little bit early. I said that to Hubs, and he was like, okay, sounds like a fine idea. They'll probably keep you. They're not going to send you home and tell you to come back in like 2 hours. So we went in. We got there at around 3:30 when they were like, oh, okay, just go on up. They're expecting you anyway later, so maybe they have a room for you. So we went on up, and they were like, yeah, you know, your room is free. We keep it free several hours in advance, just so there isn't a problem. So we go up, get me into my room, hook me up to all the lovely beepy boopy machines and monitors, and that was fun. So I'm still contracting like every 8 to 10 minutes. They checked me and I was only dilated to a 1, but they decided to keep me anyway. They tried to do my hep lock and they wound up blowing like 8 or 9 veins before they finally got one, and they didn't even get a good set until about 7:30 that night, which sucked. And so then they said that they were going to come in and give me a sleep aid around 9:30 to help me sleep through the night, because if I wasn't dilated to at least a 5 when they woke me up at 5 a.m., they were going to start Pitocin at 6 a.m. So I was like, great, the sleep might help me dilate some more if I keep contracting. So they gave me a sleep aid at 9:30, and I stayed awake probably till about 11. Like, I fought it, and I was hallucinating like crazy. But I finally passed out around 11. They shook me awake at 5 a.m., checked me again, and I was only a 1.5 centimeter dilated, so I was really disappointed with that. My contractions had tapered off to about, 10 to 15 minutes apart, which I was really disappointed in, but they still hurt. They were still pretty intense ones. So I took a shower, I brushed my hair, I brushed my teeth, I called my dad and told him, hey, I'm here, I'm in the hospital, blah, 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 we're going to have the baby sometime today or tomorrow. They came in, they hooked me up to the Pitocin at 6 a.m., and the contractions immediately went from 10 to 15 minutes apart to 5 minutes apart. Within 30 minutes, I was contracting 5 minutes apart, and the contractions were lasting about 2 minutes, and it sucked so bad. They came back in probably around 8:30 a.m., checked me again. I was 2 centimeters. Not pleased with the progress, so they pumped the Pitocin up again. Every 2 to 3 minutes apart now I was contracting, and they were lasting about 2 minutes apiece. So I was in a whole lot of pain. They came back in around 1 p.m. and I was like 2.5, 3 centimeters dilated. Again, not fun. So they decided to break my water just to see if they could speed things up a little bit. So they broke it, and when my OB broke my water, it actually like splashed up, because she broke it in the middle of a contraction. But she broke it in the middle of a contraction, and it sprayed up all over her. She actually had to go home and change her outfit because I completely drenched her. But so they broke my water at around 1, and from there the contractions became nearly unbearable. I was like almost screaming into the pillow. Hubs, sweet Hubs, kept trying to take video updates like, hey, we're still contracting, haha, how you doing, honey? And in every single one of those, I'm just like you can't understand a word that I'm saying. So we wound up deleting all that footage, but he did it on accident. When I was pushing, he accidentally deleted most of the footage. So that would have been fun to have, but not really. So they kept coming in to check me, and still no progress really. Around 4 in the afternoon, 4:30, I had hit 5 centimeters. And they were like, okay, some progress, and I was still contracting 2 to 3 minutes apart, but now they started lasting 2 minutes, 30 seconds to 3 minutes each. So my contractions were just as long as the break in between them, which, if you've never been in labor, it sucks. Having contractions like that sucks. Avoid an induction, avoid Pitocin, just don't. Just don't, okay? It sucks. So, I'm there, and they come back in at around 7:30, and they check me again. And at this point, I'm going on 32 hours of labor, They're like, you're still only a 5, so we're gonna start prepping you for a C-section. And I said, whoa, hold up. Is Bear in distress? They said, no. I said, then if you cut me open, I will sue you. You give me an epidural, you let me labor for another hour. If I haven't progressed, fine, we can do a C-section. So the anesthesiologist came in, gave me the epi, and it was so weird. It was like instant numbing from like here down. Really weird feeling, never again. But they came back in at 8:30, and they're like, if you're not at least like a 6.5, 7, we're gonna have to do a C-section. I said, fine. So she reaches on up in there, and her eyes turned huge. And she just looked at me and she goes, can you just give me a little cough? So it's like, heh. And she just screams out the door. She's like, someone get the doctor. I need nurses in here. Break down the bed. She looks at me. She goes, you're a 10. and the baby's head is like coming out right now. I was like, oh crap. So they come in, they start breaking down the bed, and I turned to Hubs and I said, hey honey, can I have the cell phone? He was like, what? I was like, yeah, I want the cell phone. So he gives me the cell phone, and I actually called my dad. And he picked up, he's like, hey honey, what's up? And I was like, I'm having a baby. He's like, well, I know. I said, no, I'm pushing him out. And he was like, why are you on the phone with me if you're pushing out a baby? Like, why are you talking to me right now? I was like, I don't know, I just felt like calling and saying hi and letting you know that your grandson's gonna be here soon. He was just like, shut up, get off the phone, and push out the baby. I was like, oh, right, okay, will do. So, got off the phone, and they turned off my epi, they turned off my Pitocin, and I started to push at like 8:30. I started to push, and I pushed, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I pushed and I pushed, and the doctor came in, and his head was like crowning, but his head was so big around that no matter how much I stretched and stretched and stretched, it wouldn't come out. And so my doctor said, okay, either you are gonna rip like wide open and there will be no control over how far you rip, and based on the violence of your contractions right now, you will rip like bad. So do you want an episiotomy? And I was like, okay, fine. So she gives me an episiotomy, and I had a mirror so I could like watch him crown. And so like watching her like with the scissors just go, I was like, oh, that's so gross. But 2 more pushes, his head was out, a couple more pushes, boom. There he was.
Oh yes.
And honestly, like seeing him for the first time ever, after carrying him for 40 weeks in my belly, and just wondering like what he looked like, and just seeing him like come up, it's like there he was. And he was just so beautiful, his head full of hair, screaming his head off. Sorry. I still get emotional when I think about it, because it was the most beautiful moment of my life. I was in crazy pain at that point, but I didn't care. It was so beautiful. And he comes out screaming, and they put him right up on my chest. Alright, we it was instant love. I can't even describe it. It was so beautiful, and Hubs got to cut the cord and everything, and he was born at 9:13 p.m. on December 27th, 2011, and he weighed 8 pounds, 12 ounces, and he was 21 inches long exactly. And his APGAR when he first came out was an 8, and then his 5-minute APGAR was a 9, so super healthy, little chunky monkey. And his head was 14 inches around, 14-inch circumference here. I wound up with 15 stitches, a lot from internal tearing, because his head was so big it actually ripped my cervix on the way out, and then obviously the episiotomy. So 15 stitches, which the healing is worse than the delivery. No one tells you that, but I'm telling you that right now. The healing is worse than the delivery itself. Okay, but I mean, he was so just perfect. He latched on right away. It was indescribable. He was the most beautiful newborn I had ever seen, and newborns are ugly. Like, people don't tell you this, but newborns are not attractive. In the moment though, I thought he was so perfect and just so beautiful, and I was absolutely overwhelmed with love for him. But looking back on the pictures and like comparing them to now, like his brand new pictures versus now, I was like, this looks like 2 different kids. But in the moment, I was so in love, and it's really completely indescribable, and I wish I could do it again. I really do. Do it slightly differently, but I really wish I could do it again. It was perfect. It really was perfect the way it worked out, and I got my absolutely perfect son out of it, so what more can I ask for, right? So this has been a birth story video. Yay!